Coming up on NTV Tonight.
Can't stop a tax and then you need resources to fund because another country is not taxing.
The government is boldly unrelenting in its quest to dig deeper into your pockets.
Also tonight, were MPs bribed to reject the contraband sugar report?
Who witnessed is the Honorable John Waluke, Member of Parliament, Sirisia. I did not witness, I don't know about it. I will ask him, why did you refuse the money? And he said that it was little.
After a previous chorus of confessions, Didmas Barasa is now the soloist in the song of MPs for sale.
Also on the bulletin, it's far much more than labor pains at Pumwani Maternity Hospital.
Incubator moja inawekwa watoto wanne jameni.
And the situation is biting the mothers and babies most.
Tumeumwa na umbu mpaka hata tumechoka.
Plus, trailing Sharon's killers.
I'm satisfied that the nature of his investigation is complex.
Investigations and arrest come closer to Migori Governor Okoth Obado. 2 more suspects in custody.
NTV Tonight with Dennis Okari and Olive Burrows.
Thank you for watching, and remember you can watch us live. That is ntv.co.ke/live. Our sign language presenter tonight is David Gondoa.
You can also watch us on NTV Kenya on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter. Police officers this afternoon raided a house belonging to the former Alliance for Real Change presidential candidate Abduba Dida, located in South Sea, and arrested 6 men and 1 woman suspected to be involved in a yet-to-be-determined illegal activity.
An assortment of items, including hard cash and foreign currency, were also confiscated in the raid. Dida and the suspects were later taken to the Langata police station for questioning.
Suspicious residents of Nairobi South Sea Estate are said to have noticed some eyebrow-raising activities in a house owned by Abduba Dida, a 2-time presidential candidate. They then reported the concerns to the estate officials, saying they noticed high frequency of mass movement of young people to and from the house. The occupants of the house are said to have moved in September of last year.
The owner of the house eventually came later on. This was Abdi Diba, the former presidential candidate, who eventually came and said he's the owner of the house. So we asked him to accompany the police and go and record the statement. He didn't have anything to say. He said he would go.
A local member of the county assembly who got the information then decided to engage the police. When the house was raided, laptops, cameras, identification cards, foreign currency notes and mobile phones, some of which were hidden in mattresses and in the ceiling, were also recovered.
But whatever activities they were doing were our main worry, because, you know, we have had incidents of insecurity. We feared that probably they could be planning something or doing something illegal.
Routers were also found in the house, so were sex-enhancing drugs and contraceptives. In another room, a makeshift studio had been installed, and yet another section of the house, school desks, were found stacked on each other. One of the rooms, which had campaign materials, is suspected to be Dida's home office because of its setting. The police say they are conducting investigations to determine what exactly the house was being used for. They also want to determine if illegal immigrants had been in the house and where they were from. The 6 suspects in the police custody are helping with investigations. Rich for comment, the former presidential candidate told NTV that the police have a right to gain access to any house, anywhere, and conduct operations. Ken Mijungu, NTV.
12 Chinese nationals suspected of being involved in a prostitution ring were today arrested, awaiting deportation. Among those arrested were 8 women and 4 men.
And according to the police, one of the arrested female suspects was on the watch list since May of 2017 on suspicion of being involved in prostitution and illegal gambling in the country. The suspects were arrested in a 5 a.m. raid in South Sea, Nairobi, before the Immigration Department initiated the deportation process. This comes as Interior CS Fred Matiang'i declared war on illegal immigrants. We must grow the economy, and we can only do this through additional taxes. So Kenyans must dig deeper into their pockets for this to happen.
This is the message of the government as reiterated by the National Treasury Cabinet Secretary Henry Rotich, who defended the presidential proposals forwarded to Parliament for approval.
Kennedy Muredi reports on the unbowed stand of the executive on reaching deeper into Mwananchi's purses, with the CS underlining the plans to end the long period of tax exemptions.
It's a whole process.
The National Treasury Cabinet Secretary Henry Rotich was before the National Assembly's Finance and National Planning Committee to justify the President's move to reject the 2018 Finance Bill and return it to Parliament with a memorandum. Here, he defended the new tax measures introduced in the memorandum, arguing that the government was in need of the money so as to plug into the budget deficit in the 2018-2019 budget and spur economic growth.
If you don't tax it, you have a lower tax base, then you don't progress. You don't progress. So you can't stop a tax and then you need resources to fund because another country is not taxing.
In the new tax measures in President Uhuru Kenyatta's plan, there are proposals to slap an 8% value-added tax on petroleum products with the aim of collecting an additional 17.5 billion shillings as a new income stream. The introduction of a 20 shillings excise duty per kilogram of sugar confectionery like chocolate aims to raise about 500 million shillings, while taxes on internet, money transfers and cellular phone services are projected to rake in an average of about 20 billion shillings. Also, in betting, the company and winners are to be taxed to raise 30 billion shillings, an increment from 9 billion. The Cabinet Secretary has further proposed an introduction of 18 shillings per litre of kerosene as an anti-adulteration levy on kerosene in an effort to stem adulteration of fuel.
Over 2 decades, the exemptions grew to 435 items in the exemption list. So that by the time we were reviewing the VAT Act in 2013, we were exempting virtually everything.
On confectionery, CS Rotich argues that the tax was informed by the World Health Organization, which says globally sugary foods are causing health complications.
The design of the excise tax is meant to, address the health impact, effects, which we are doing in this. And actually, all countries are moving in this direction. South Africa did introduce this recently.
CS Rotich insists that the new taxation measures being imposed on Kenyans are critical in driving the country's status that of a developing country and thus being less and less dependent on donor funding. Kennedy Muredi, NTV at Parliament Buildings.
The National Assembly's Budget and Appropriations Committee has for the better part of the day been holding closed-door meetings with stakeholders ahead of tomorrow's debate on the budget proposals made by President Uhuru Kenyatta.
Treasury Cabinet Secretary Henry Rotich and Chief Justice David Maraga are among those who appeared before the committee, and Vincent Odor now joins us live from the Boma Hotel where the legislators have been meeting.
Vincent, have you had an occasion to speak to the Treasury Cabinet Secretary and get a sense of perhaps what is expected on the floor of the House tomorrow?
Absolutely. The Treasury CS Henry Rotich just left the meeting at about 8:20 this evening, and we spoke to him and he told us that basically today what he was doing is taking through the members of the Budget and Appropriation Committee on some of the budget cuts proposal he has forwarded, because they are trying to reduce the budget and trying to kind of save about 55 billion shillings from the initial budget of over 3 trillion shillings. And one of the things that he told us that they are doing budget cuts across the sectors, and one of the biggest losers basically will be the Ministry of Devolution, Treasury. And I've spoken to some of the members who are in the meeting. They're saying that they are going to they've added the amount allocated to judiciary. That's basically what is happening. And also the Chief Justice was here, and basically what is going on right now, the meeting is still underway, and the chairman Kimani Chungwa said he's likely to speak to us a few minutes from now. But basically what has been happening since 9 a.m. in the morning. They have been having a series of meeting heads of various sectors to try and see some of the cuts they can do so that tomorrow they can work on their report tonight and be able to present a supplementary reduction budget tomorrow in Parliament, which the members of Parliament will be able to vote against or for, together with the memorandum from the President. Right now, let's just join the chairman who is just arrived. We see what was happening. Thank you very much. Chairman, just tell us so far, how has been the progress, and what have you decided on right now?
Quite engaging. I'm not sure I'll be able to tell you exactly what we've decided on, but I can tell you we have been able to engage with the Parliamentary Service Commission. We've also been able to engage with the Judicial Service Commission, and lastly with the National Treasury, and largely agreed on the areas that we need to do budget cuts on to be able to consolidate our fiscal deficits, to be able to achieve our fiscal consolidation. Is an exercise that we are still continuing, probably for another few hours, then we finalize. So I can't be able to tell you conclusively. All I can assure you is that by tomorrow morning, we shall have a report ready for the House to be considered by the House. We should be able to table a report on the appropriations bill tomorrow morning.
Have there been any sort of conflicting views between you and Treasury, given that some of the MPs that we spoke to wanted to reduce the budget even further, and according to Treasury Cabinet Secretary Henry Rotich, that can be possible if the government needs to achieve some of the infrastructural growth for the county and national government projects that they've set in place?
Of course, we are not always agreed on. People have different opinions. We don't have to always read from the same page with the National Treasury. And that is why we have these meetings, to be able to agree on a common position that is for the good of this country. People have different views. There are those who have views that financing can be done off balance sheet through other means. But I think we are dealing with very special circumstances. It's the first time I think we are doing a supplementary budget at this time of the year, only 2 months into the financial year, and therefore special circumstances call for special opportunities to be able to find solutions. And what we have been doing is to be able to engage with the National Treasury and all the other stakeholders to be able to find a compromise and strike a balance between what our revenues are and what our expected expenditures in the course of the year will be. And I am confident. We largely, I can tell you largely, we have had very good engagements and been able to agree on a number of areas. And what we are not able to fully agree, then we find a compromise position. It's a process where it's a give and take process.
And some of the, or rather the Treasury Cabinet Secretary hinted at.
The chair of the Budget and Appropriations Committee of the National Assembly speaking to Vincent Odwar there. Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka has asked members of the party to back President Uhuru Kenyatta's proposal to slash fuel VAT from 16% to 8% in Parliament tomorrow.
Kalonzo said the move was for the good of the country. This comes a day after the NASA coalition offered unconditional support to the president's proposals.
Everybody is feeling the heat, but there's a time when as a nation we must sit and reason together. So I would recommend that we listen to what Kenyans are saying. The cry, at least somebody give it to him. When it was 16%, the president was able to say, I have heard you. All right? And you can imagine the amount of agonizing he has gone through. I'm quite sure President Uhuru Kenyatta's intention is not to oppress his citizens. After all, they gave him a mandate.
As legislators head back to Parliament for a special sitting to discuss the Finance Bill 2018, we asked Kenyans from across the country one simple question.
And that is, how do you want your Member of Parliament to vote tomorrow? Here are some of your views.
Tomorrow, there is nothing that I'm expecting, because they have decided to please what we call political personality cult. They are using the weakness of Kenyans to enrich themselves.
Wasipitishe vile party leader wanawaambia waende wabitise waseme ya kwamba mafuta ekuche 0.
Let me be very specific to Honorable Kaloma, the constituency where we are now, that the people of Homa Bay Town constituency represent together with Gladys Wanga, who also represent us as a MP in that parliament, as a county MP, that we do not want to see their names in the yes list.
Kwa hivyo hata hao wako nje wanasema hawatapitisha, wapitishe na waache mambo ya kushikana na wengine kusema hawatapitisha.
Waongeza hata wakifikisha 30%, sisi wananchi tumejitokeza, tutavumilia.
We gave them power to represent us in the National Assembly. Now we expect them to help us in this situation, to vote against the wish of the president.
Ningeomba bunge lipitishe ikiwa 8%, sababu tumeangalia watu wetu, hatujawafikiria sana, na pia tumeangalia nchi yetu ili iweze kujimudu.
Wabunge wasikubaliane na maneno ya rais, sababu rais mwenyewe ndiye ameenda kukopa pesa zile ambazo sisi wenyewe hatuwezi tukagaramia.
Maoni yangu ni wapitishe asubuhi kwanza tena na mapema.
Those are the views of Kenyans. Olive, you're also Kenyan. You have any views? What do you expect tomorrow?
I don't expect much from our legislators. I expect they'll pass the proposals.
I expect drama, but let's see.
I don't.
Let's see.
Okay.
Let's see.
The Senate Committee on Health has officially commenced investigations into Pumwani Maternity Hospital. The senators' reports after a visit to the health facility were as damning as explained by hospital staff and patients at Pumwani.
The probe comes after the incident that occurred on Monday when Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko uncovered the unsanitary disposal of the remains of newborns. Charity Mwangi tells us more.
Pumwani Hospital has been in the limelight for the better part of this week after the discovery of dead bodies stashed in plastic bags and boxes awaiting transportation to the city mortuary. But with the facility keeping its doors open in light of the recent incident, more challenges are coming to the fore. The nursing staff and other members of the support staff have decried what they term as poor working conditions. They claim that the consulting staff do not do their share of work, adding that the situation is contributing to the high mortality rate recorded by the hospital.
There were no packs for mothers to deliver, no delivery packs. They were used and they were exhausted. Nurses started using surgical blades to cut the cord and using the cord clamps, which is risky to the nurses of this country.
In spite of the challenges, expectant mothers continue to stream into the hospital, showing just how important the health facility is to Nairobi residents.
Shida yenye iko mahali ani vifaa haitoshi. Tena vitu kama hizi net hakuna. Tumeumwa na umbu mpaka hata tumechoka.
Mke wangu alikuwa na mjamzito. Nilimleta hapa on Sunday around 11. So hakuweza kujifungua mpaka jana. Jana nimempigia simu mwendo wa saa 6 usiku. Hakuweza kushika, nafikiri she was in labor. So baadaye mimi nilizima simu. Asubuhi nikimpigia ndo akaniambia mtoto amefariki.
The Senate Committee on Health toured the Pumwani Hospital to evaluate services offered at the hospital, and their report at the end of the visit was damning.
Ukweli kama ingekuwa nchi zingine, hii hospitali ingefungwa leo hivi.
The quality of healthcare that we are giving our mothers and sisters is completely wanting. And it's all because of mismanagement of this hospital.
Incubator moja inawekwa watoto 4 jameni. Sisi tunaishi wapi? Ile maneno itafanyika hapa, wacha maneno iangaliwe. Suluhu sio kufuta watu kazi. Suluhu ni kuongeza madaktari hapa na nurses hapa.
Meanwhile, the county government delivered cold storage equipment to the hospital.
Following the tour of this facility, the Senate Committee on Health now plans to summon Nairobi County Governor Mike Sonko alongside other involved parties to understand exactly what ails Pumwani Hospital. This, even as they scrutinize the budget allocation against how the money is spent. Charity Mwangi, NTV.
You're fired. That's a line that has been famous with US President Donald Trump from his days as a TV personality on The Apprentice show. This phrase and similar implications have become the rule rather than the exception in Nairobi's county government.
While getting a job in devolved governments had increasingly appeared as being promising in the county government of Nairobi, especially for senior positions such as that of an executive committee member, it seems to be one of the most unstable postings.
Brenda Wanga looks at Governor Mike Sonko's leadership, which has seen many suspensions and sackings in less than a year, which may be seen as the governor's trump card.
When the Nairobi County Executive Committee member in charge of health stepped up to clear the air on the Pumwani Hospital infant's death, she thought she was dispensing her duties as required by law.
The fact is that out of the 11 bodies that were confirmed yesterday, we can entirely account for each and every child.
None of those deaths occurred out of lack of emergency services.
But those statements are clear contradiction of what their boss, the governor, had uncovered the day before was not seen as stepping up, but rather stepping on toes of the high and mighty. In a statement, the governor sent Veska Kagongo, the then health member at the County Executive Committee, the County Secretary Peter Kariuki, the Chief Officer of Health Services Mahat Jimale, and the County Attorney Lydia Kwamboka on immediate suspension. The undertone: contradict at your own cost, align or be sidelined. Suspensions from Governor Mike Sonko's cabinet are increasingly becoming more of the norm rather than the exception. Prior to the Health CEC's member's suspension, the previous holder of the very same office, Hitan Majevdia, was shown the door just a month ago on account of what the governor termed as laxity and poor performance. That threat is one that he made come true then and on other instances. Aside from the capital's county health docket, the finance ministry has also seen a high turnover of top officers. From the time he took over the reins at City Hall, at least 5 different people have held that all-important docket. Amongst those suspended included Veska Kagongo, Danvas Makori and Ekaya Alumasi. Makori and Alumasi faced Sonko's wrath for allegedly being a spy for former Governor Evans Kidero and misusing public funds respectively. The county ministers are only but a portion of those who have been sacked or suspended by the governor. As the beginning of August this year, at least 40 employees of the county had been kicked out of office. Sonko has claimed to base his actions on the human resource at the county on the tenets of the law. But the frequency of the movement for senior staff has now turned the county government of Nairobi into one of the most unstable postings, where it seems that if you speak or act in a way that the government deems unpleasant, he pulls out what he seems to be having as his trump card. You're fired. Brenda Wanga, NTV.
And Brenda ends that report with that phrase again. What was it again?
You're fired.
Well, the man who's been associated with that phrase, Nairobi Governor Mike Mbuvi Sonko, has since his days as a member of parliament used his peculiar style of addressing his constituents via social media.
This Sonko style has been characterized by drama on and off social media. While most of this escapades see him record videos, especially on Facebook Live, sometimes he chooses to express himself on various issues via his style of dress.
And while this wins him praise among his supporters, it has raised concerns among some quarters over his intent.
The latest reports of alleged foul play at the Pumwani Maternity Hospital played out to the public gallery late Monday afternoon, courtesy of Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko, who together with his media team recorded events at the region's busiest maternity referral hospital and streamed the pictures live on Facebook. The governor also taking pictures of the dead babies, which later surfaced on social media. The story of 12 children dead due to negligent staff seeming to play into the emotions of many Kenyans who expressed their anger and disappointment over the matter. In mid-July, the governor recorded a Nairobi businessman Praful Kumar as he was arrested by EACC officials at the governor's residence in Kilifi County. EACC made the arrest after getting evidence that the businessman wanted to offer a bribe of 1 million shillings to Governor Sonko to facilitate approval of his hotel under construction. The county government of Nairobi had stopped the construction of the hotel on the 16th of August 2016.
First Lady wako
A few weeks earlier, the governor of Nairobi recorded a telephone conversation between himself and the governor of Kiambu, Ferdinand Waitito, the latter pleading with the former to release his wife, who had been arrested by city Okaris over building violations in the city. In his time as the Member of Parliament for Makadara, Sonko released his frustrations over what he termed as bad governance in the city on iron doors in the city centre. A charged crowd that accompanied him that afternoon was treated to drama by the Mheshimiwa, who lay on the tarmac, kicking and screaming. In his time as Nairobi Senator, Sonko put in a call to the head of state seeking his intervention over demolition of structures to pave way for road expansion in the city.
Thank you, sir.
Though he got the approval to have the demolition halted, it was the decision to make the call public by putting it on speaker mode that got many question the then senator's intent. The governor has several ways of passing his messages in the build-up to the 2017 election. The best way he could urge for peace and calm was how he wore his hair. While on a trip to the International Criminal Court at The Hague, Sonko made sure that the world knew clearly what his thoughts over the proceedings at the court then were. Whether many approve of his tactics or not, this seems to be a popular style that Sonko seems to approve of in order to effectively send out key messages to his targeted audiences. Leila Mohammed, NTV.
We take a break on that note, but you're not fired, so please stay with us. Welcome back. 2 more suspects linked to Migori Governor Okoth Bado have been detained as detectives from the Directorate of Criminal Investigations continue to probe the late Sharon Otieno's gruesome murder. The 2, Kaspal Obiero, who is a clerk in Migori County, and Elvis Okoth, a policeman attached to the governor's security detail, have been detained for 10 days by Kisii Senior Resident Magistrate Luta Shiundu to pave way for further investigations.
Kaspal Obiero and Elvis Okoth are the latest suspects in the late Sharon Otieno's murder. Obiero is a clerk in Migori County, while Okoth Omundi is a police officer attached to Migori Governor Okoth Bado's security detail. A Kisii court and a senior resident magistrate Luta Shiundu accepted the application by the prosecution to detain the suspects for 10 days.
I'm satisfied that the nature of his investigation is complex. It requires more time to be completed. Weighing all the circumstances in totality, I'm inclined to allow the application by the applicant, which I hereby do. The respondents will be allowed access to medical attention and their counsel when the need arises.
Defense lawyer Omunde Kisera, representing Migori clerk Kaspal Obiero, claimed his client had a medical condition. Obiero is said to run errands for Governor Bado, and his name has been adversely mentioned by some of the suspects already in custody.
Things and procedures.
Furthermore, a vehicle he drives was linked to the kidnapping of the late Sharon Otieno and Nation journalist Baraku Duor. Detectives investigating the murder of the Rongo University student say their persons of interest are 7 individuals who either assaulted her or had contact with her before she died. Michael Oyamo, Migori Governor Okoth Bado's personal assistant, journalist Baraku Duor, and the 4-member gang that kidnapped the woman were the initial suspects. Governor Bado and his wife Helen have also recorded statements with the police.
There was drama during the Powers and Privileges Parliamentary Committee hearing when MPs who had appeared to submit evidence of the sugar report bribery claims made an unprecedented about turn. Only one legislator maintained that his fellow legislators had been compromised to shoot down the report during the 4-hour session that was chaired by Speaker of the National Assembly, Justin Muturi. NTV's Seth Olale followed the proceedings.
Will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. So help me God.
Out of the 9 members of parliament who testified before the Powers and Privileges Committee, only one confirmed the bribery claims regarding the sugar report.
So in the process of asking what is the content of his letter, of the envelope, she told me 10,000 shillings. I went ahead and asked for whatever purpose.
What did you understand the kitu tuangushe to mean?
We witnessed is the Honorable John Waluke, Member of Parliament, Sirisia. We even protested together.
However, Sirisia MP John Waluke denied that he witnessed Wajir women representatives Fatuma Gedi offering the Kimilili legislator a bribe.
I did not witness, I don't know about it. And I told him, I even asked him, why did you refuse the money? And he said that it was little. And then I asked him if it was, suppose it was more. And how much did you expect if the rate was offered to you? And he said 100.
Other lawmakers who had alluded to the bribery allegations in order to shoot down the sugar report had a different position.
But I don't have tangible evidence, and I would not want to peddle rumors. I heard about it, but I have no empirical evidence to table to this committee, and I would not want to hurt the interests of my colleagues that so-and-so was giving money.
I want to apologize for having made those comments regarding the credibility of Parliament.
This lady going around, she was a Muslim, I remember, but I don't know, I actually do not know her. So that was reported, it's just hearsay. That is what I may have been referring to.
These are written stories of the newspapers, and it stands to be.
It might take days or even weeks for the Powers and Privileges Committee that is chaired by the Speaker of the National Assembly, Justin Muturi, to come to its conclusion based on testimonials received from various correspondents. Seth Olale, NTV, Nairobi.
The Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions wants the case against Deputy Chief Justice Philomena Mwilu moved to the Anti-Corruption Court. Justice Philomena Mwilu is faced with charges of graft, and the DPP argues that she should therefore be charged in an anti-corruption court instead of a constitutional one. The judge advised the prosecution return on the 9th of October for the mention of the graft case facing the Deputy Chief Justice. Accusations against the DCJ on various issues, including questionable transactions at Imperial Bank and failure to pay taxes.
And ready the application dated.
And from that story, we are taking another short break, but Dan Mwangi will be here with the business news. Stay with us.
Good evening and welcome to NTV Business. I'm Dan Mwangi. Now, more jobs will be lost if the government goes ahead with its plan to implement additional taxes, with well over 20,000 people already having been laid off by a number of employers in the past year. The Federation of Kenya Employers Executive Director Jacqueline Mugo says this and adds that the plan to grow the country's economy by increasing taxes is a case of a government shooting itself in the foot because this is an unsustainable plan. She spoke to me earlier in the day.
We don't want to lose more jobs as we increase taxes on the few Kenyans and the few businesses in the formal economy. What we really need to look at is how to stir the informal economy, which is where most businesses are. I don't think you can keep taxing a quarter of the formal sector, which is just a quarter of the working population, to support all these huge expenditure plans that we have as a country. I think that's a self-defeating strategy, especially when you look at the big development projects that we have. How are we going to finance them through tax? You simply cannot.
What are we seeing in terms of retrenchments? Are we seeing more job losses coming?
I'm not a scaremonger because employers do retrenchments as a last resort. But it is inevitable when the numbers don't make sense.
What is your view on the national debt? We are at over 5 trillion shillings.
It's a lot of debt. I think we have borrowed to the limit. Apparently, this year alone, KRA is supposed to raise 1.74 trillion shillings from taxes for recurrent expenditure. 870 billion of that will go to service debt. There is no way that is sustainable. So my view is that we should rethink the huge development projects we have.
There have been some proposals that the president should probably drop some of his agenda from big 4 to maybe have just one major one or two. Briefly, are you in support of this?
I would subscribe to that because we have, what, 4 years with 4 agenda items with no money to deliver on them. And right now, the answer seems to be tax Kenyans more. I think seeing if you want to leave a legacy, let's pick 1 or 2 and just put all our resources there. And then you'll be able to say that this is what we achieved in the 4 years. Because 4 years is a very short time. So I would actually agree with that and see if we cannot put our national resources. If it's health, let's focus on health and provide that because that's a big issue for Kenyans. A healthy nation is a productive nation.
Petroleum CS John Munyes has ruled out sabotage in yesterday's mishap at the Kenya Pipeline Company's Kisumu depot, where 14 trucks were loaded with fuel that was contaminated with water. The CS has announced that investigations into the incident have commenced, with results expected in 2 weeks' time. Here's Okari with the details.
By this afternoon, the mystery surrounding what some people have described as a deadly mistake was yet to be unraveled. The CS was accompanied by KPC's Managing Director Joe Sang and a host of senior government and company officials spent the better part of the afternoon holed up in a crisis meeting at the depot.
We've gone ahead to set up a team to investigate and report in 2 weeks. In a fortnight, we'll have a report, a comprehensive report that will guide us in the next course of action. It could be a disciplinary action.
Munyes said that the anomaly could have been occasioned by a recent commissioning of a new line or laxity among some members of staff.
I want to rule out sabotage. There was no sabotage on this operation.
Yesterday, truck drivers destined for various parts of Western Kenya raised the alarm after realizing that their tankers were loaded with water instead of super petrol moments after leaving the depot.
Hatua tuliochukua ni kuregesha mafuta, pipeline wenyewe wakachukua mafuta wakamwaga ndani hapo. Bado tunasubiri kupewa mwelekeo.
The CS, however, remained non-committal on whether or not the government will compensate the transporters. Okari, NTV.
Despite being a sound investment instrument and one that enables investors to seek returns from an array of properties, real estate investment trusts or REITs in Kenya have not gained traction to the extent that would have been anticipated. So far, only the Stanley Fahari rate is trading in the market. Now here's Alex Mwangi with more insight about the hurdles facing the expansion of REITs in the country.
A real estate investment trust or REIT is a type of security that invests in real estate and often trades on major exchanges like a stock, thereby opening up the opportunity for investments by a broader scale of the public and to a wide range of property investments.
Unlike before, REITs will make real estate liquid since investors can easily liquidate their investments by selling them at the NSE. REITs traded at the NSE are also exempt from stamp duty.
Despite those advantages, REITs are so far yet to be embraced by market players as had been anticipated, with only one currently trading.
The people who develop property and the people who invest in property haven't been talking to one another, because the investors in things like REITs is pension funds, mutual funds, etc. And the developers and these funds have not been talking to one another.
The REITs market in the United States dates back to 1960. Currently, equity REITs in the US have a market capitalization of $1.1 trillion. For a company to operate a REIT in the US, it needs to have at least 100 shareholders.
REITs are widely owned by both individual
and institutional investors. NARI estimates that over 80 million Americans and 40% of American households own REIT shares today, either directly or indirectly.
In the biggest market for REITs globally, there is a requirement that they should distribute at least 90% of their taxable income each year to their shareholders in the form of stock dividends. Kenya has pegged a similar threshold at 80%.
Simply put, a REIT can't keep the money.
REITs have a number of advantages over the conventional mode of investing in real estate companies by buying their shares from individual firms at the stock market.
Owning large portfolios of property as an individual is not sustainable. It has the vagaries of one day you grow old and you can no longer manage those properties. So institutional ownership of property is the way forward. It's the future for this country, especially for large portfolios of property.
At the inaugural REITs conference, the REITs Association of Kenya was launched. Alex Mwangi, NTV.
The Port of Mombasa has reported a 5.3% increase in container traffic for the first half of this year, with the port handling 614,625 containers compared to 583,661 containers during a similar period last year. Now, according to data from the Kenya Ports Authority, transshipment traffic grew by 44% to 54,692 containers, while cargo destined for the ports market increased to 4.6 million from 4.3 million in the same period last year. The improved performance was registered despite the series of system failures that hit the port over the period, causing massive congestion and delays that saw Managing Director Catherine Mturi Wairi fired and replaced by Daniel Manduku in acting capacity in May. Business myself, both done. Have yourself a good night.
OneXBet.
Welcome back. And farther afield, Zambian President Edgar Lungu fired a cabinet minister in charge of social welfare funds today after donors froze aid over suspicions that $4 million of funding may have been misused.
Meanwhile, South Korean President Moon Jae-in said the two Koreas have agreed to eliminate all danger of war from the Korean peninsula. President Jae-in spoke during his official visit in Pyongyang, North Korea.
Zambian President Edgar Lungu fired.
Well, thank you so much for watching. We're taking another short break. Waro the Kiru will be here with the sports news.
It is time to play. I am Warothe Kirwan. Champions Gor Mahia lost their 4th consecutive game in all competitions after they crashed to a 2-0 loss against Ulinzi in a Kenyan Premier League match played at the Machakos Stadium this afternoon. Elvis Nandwa scored a goal in each half to gift the Soldiers the lead, the 3 points, and Kogalo losses come on the back of players go slow in response to unpaid salaries and bonuses. The victory for Ulinzi takes their points tally to 50 and they lie 4th, a point below third-placed AFC Leopards, who fell 3-1 to Karabangi Sharks on Tuesday. In other matches played Wednesday, Thika United edged closer to relegation after losing 2-0 at home to Tusker, and Sofapaka thrashed Kakamega Homeboys 4-1. And Gladys Cherono, who won the women's race at the Berlin Marathon, and Amos Kipruto, who finished second to the new world record holder, Eliud Kipchoge, both received heroic welcomes at the Eldoret International Airport as they jetted back into the country. Gabriel Kudaka with the details from Eldoret.
3-time Berlin Marathon champion Gladys Cherono landed at the Eldoret International Airport at around 8 a.m. and was warmly welcomed by her family members and friends.
I'm happy to be a winner of Berlin Marathon, and my preparation was so good. I trained very well, and I knew that I will go and break the course record. I was not fearing the barber.
Her husband Joseph Bwambok, who doubles up as her coach, also attributed the good results to consistent hard work.
For the last 3 months, ingawacha mazoezi, unajua mazoezi lazima ikuwe ngumu kidogo, so but unajua yeye kwanza alikuwa na shida ya injury for the last 2 years.
Running in his 6th marathon, Amos Kipruto surprised many by finishing second. He arrived later in the afternoon to a heroic welcome by family members and friends who had been waiting at the airport hours before he landed.
Marathon is a marathon. It's not like a 10K or a half where you just prepare and go and run. Marathon need a time, need a good mentality and good discipline, and performance you will perform well.
Unlike Cherono, who is considering to take a break before resuming training for the next season, Kipruto is planning to participate in shorter races to keep fit. Even as Kenyans celebrate the 1-2-3 sweep in the men's category that saw Eliud Kipchoge lower the world marathon record and Gladys Cherono setting a new course record, former record holder Wilson Kipsang is sounding a warning.
We are not taking a step to tap and nurture the young ones. That is why you find that the top athletes, as they retire, the number of athletes who are coming up to pick the baton are becoming less.
Gabriel Kudaka, NTV Sport.
Now, we just enjoyed the Football World Cup, and it is now just 1 year to go before the 2019 Japan Rugby World Cup, which kicks off with 12 venues stretching the length of Japan, set to host the matches. The Tokyo Stadium will host the opening ceremony and first match between host Japan and Russia. The 72,000 capacity Yokohama International Stadium, which also hosted the 2000. Africa champion Manveer Bayan is a Sport Journalists Association of Kenya, SJAC, and Star Times sport personality for the month of June. Navigated by his British partner Drew Starrock, the multiple racing team Skoda Fabia R5 Speedster bagged the coveted award after winning the prestigious Gomez of Zambia International Rally, as well as being the first ever non-South African competitor to win the ARC 3-York Rally. He beat athletes Gloria Mulei, Dominic Abuda, and Matthew Sewe, as well as tennis ace Shil Kotecha, to become the 5th winner of the award this year.
You know, we had a good year. We won, I think, all the races except for Safari was the only one which we didn't finish. So it's been a good year for us.
And you know, Kupepeta, just juggling the ball can take you places. And Ivorian Abdul Kader Kone was the winner of the first African Freestyle Football Championship held in Lagos, Nigeria. Kone received a four-wheel drive car, 300,000 shillings, Kenya shillings, and an all-expense-paid trip to the United Kingdom to perform during halftime at the Premier League match. The three-day event attracted freestylers from over African countries showing off their skills for the title of African Football Freestyle Champion. And it is Champions League night, and if you support Arsenal, you have to wait until tomorrow for Europa. But for the matches that have been played, Ajax Amsterdam has just thrashed AX Athens 3-0, and Shakhtar Donetsk and Hoffenheim have drawn 2-2. Later on tonight, the both Manchester clubs will be in action. We'll give you details of those in our subsequent bulletins.
Thank you so much for watching NTV Tonight. My name is Dennis Okari.
And I'm Burrows. Our sign-in language interpreter has been David Agundoa. Enjoy the rest of your viewing.
Good night.